Okay, this may sound familiar to some of you, but this is a text that I typed up on some of the message boards, so bear with me. This may go into two parts. I'm not really sure. But these are things that I said in my opinions videos, and I want to kind of point out a few things. Now, I mentioned in my opinions videos, and I'll be pasting this down in the description box when I'm reading. I basically said that from the summary I read courtesy of a member, Chaos Control 14, at the Sonic Stadium message board, I've pretty much, in my opinion, let's hear me out there, my opinion, figured out what could be happening. For you see, what is happening, from what I can tell by reading this summary, is the direction of the story right now is going in a direction that will put more focus on the game characters themselves. So in other words, characters like Amy, Knuckles, Big, Cream, Sonic himself, Tails, maybe Silver and Shadow, Rouge, they're going to probably get some more focus. Now you might have a Satayam exclusive character or Archie Comics exclusive character thrown in there, like say Bunny Rabbit, St. John, maybe, I don't know, somebody who'll be thrown in there. We can already see that from future from previews of future covers for future issues. Now, the reason I say that, now, continuing on, I quote what I typed here. Basically, I say, now upon reading that, some fans will like hearing what they have heard and read, basically about the game characters getting more focus, while others will not. Those being the kind that think that, the comics should be separate from the game in some ways. But I look at it this way. In the head writer's mind, Ian Flynn, he probably figured that the only way he could get away with the story arc, or the stories that he did recently, with 225, Genesis, and now 230 and 231, is if leading into the 250th anniversary issue, that he put more of the spotlight on an equal basis on the game characters. So in other words, instead of probably having people complain to him and to Archie and to Paul K and all that, hey, you're putting more focus on this character, you're putting more focus on that character, you're not doing justice with these characters. To me, I think this is probably this is the answer to that. In my humble opinion, this could be the answer to that. Now, I continue on by saying that some of you that are fans of the games will probably be rejoicing, while others will probably be pissed off. And either way you look at it, I guess as Paul K mentioned in an interview recently, earlier this year, he said both sides would be satisfied. Now, I do say something that I didn't say in my opinions, and I said in this typing. I said, if I was Paul, I wonder if I would have gone that far to say that, as we see many that will be happy and many that won't be. But when you look back at other anniversary issues, you may see why. Now, what I mean by that, and I'll get into this in just a second, because I mentioned this in my opinions as well. Well, and I said, and again, this is going to be in the description box, this text. I basically said, in my humble opinion, the 75th issue, the 75th anniversary issue, was Freedom Fighters only, focused on the Freedom Fighters. The 100th issue was a sidetrack. We all know which one that was. The 125th issue was Freedom Fighters and everyone else fighting to save the planet, with Sonic sacrificing himself in the eyes of the other characters to save the planet. Then we had 150, which was another sidetrack. But then we got the 175th issue, and then this is where we started to see a bit of a change, if you will. Because at the end of the 175th issue, who was standing in the wreckage that was Knothole? Who was standing in it? Who was left standing with the exception of Nicole? Who was left standing? That's right. Sonic, Amy, Knuckles, and Tails. Now, continuing on, who saved everybody in the following issue with the exception of Nicole? Who saved everybody from Eggman's grip? That's right, Sonic, Amy, Knuckles, and Tails. But then, we get to the 200th issue, and it's Freedom Fighters and Chaotix and company defeating Eggman and driving him into insanity. So basically, we've had, so far, 75, 125, and 200 focused on the Freedom Fighters and Chaotix. Now, the only issue so far that's focused on the game characters as the heroes has been the 175th issue, leading to the 176th issue. And then we get into the 225th issue, and it focuses on the Freedom Fighters and company trying to defeat the Death Egg Mark II. So, and I quote myself continuing here from what I've typed, so it only makes sense that leading into the 250th issue, 250th anniversary issue, that the focus and spotlight in the eyes of the head writer, Ian Flynn, fall onto the game characters. And as I said in this typing, and I'll tell you here on YouTube, if you don't believe me, read or ask Chaos Control 14 for a summary/review of 231, and you'll see what I mean. Now, basically what I'm saying is I think, as I said here, and I will repeat myself, I think, in my humble opinion, and you could disagree with me, you can agree or disagree with me, it doesn't matter. I think and believe, in my humble opinion, that the only way he got to do 225, the only way he got to do Genesis and do what he did in 230 and 231 was by saying that was by agreeing with Sega that by going in to the 250th issue that the game characters themselves would get more spotlight, more of an equal spotlight and focus on them going into it. Now I understand that some of you will like that, some of you will be rejoicing about that, some of you will be hopping up and down in excitement, while others, you won't like it, and then there are those like me that will be like in between, like, okay, let's just see how it plays out. Now, and that's exactly what I say here in the next paragraph. I say in the next paragraph, and I quote from what I've typed, I know many won't like hearing this or reading it, but that's the way I see it. Now the question is, will it be a success or will it be a failure? One never knows. And this is why fans like me who are in the middle are just going to sit back and let it play out, and for myself, not open any of the issues, current issues that is, till the time comes when everything will be settled and made satisfactory in the eyes of all the fans, as the editor-in-chief Paul Kay said in his interview earlier this year. So in other words, the only way I'm ever going to probably do some audio-video reviews on the current and upcoming issues is once everything's settled, said and done. Because, honestly, I don't know how I'm going to put a positive spin on any of this. Now, in the final paragraph, if you will, I say, for those that believe... Now, the final thing that I quote here from what I've typed, I say, for those that believe that this story arc will not last another 8 to 9 issues, you have to admit that... Well, basically, I say that for those that believe this story arc will not last another 8 to 9 issues, one of them being Flyboy Fox 11, Laser X 5, Jonathan 83X, maybe Ezekiel 300 perhaps, Tross, many others out there, Digimon, Richard Kunta, Patrick Butler, anybody, But basically, comic reviewer too. But basically, this is what I said. For those that believe this story arc will not last another 8 to 9 issues, you, that being everybody, that being anybody else, have to admit that may be true and it may not be true. It may not be, that it may be true and it may not be true. In other words, it may happen. We may have a shorter story arc than expected, and it may not happen. Because here's why. For you see, and again I'm quoting what I typed here, for you see, fans thought the same for the Iron Dominion story arc, and that lasted a year and 1 month. Plus, the only way that this current story arc in the continuity of the comic could come to an end is 3 ways. And I mentioned this in a video where I answered some questions, and I'll say it again. 1 is if fans overwhelmingly tell Sega, the corporation, the overall corporation, not just Japan, not just the separate corporate offices and buildings in Japan and in America and in Europe and all that, but the overall corporation itself. The overall corporation itself. No, none of the, like I said, none of these separate ones like in Japan and America and Europe and Australia and whatever. The overall corporation, Asian as a whole, that they are dissatisfied with the current direction of the comic, then that may be one way it comes to an end. Now, 2. Another way is called sales and profits. Seeing how many have stated that the Sonic comic book is Archie's best seller, that the only way, that there is no way, I should say, that there is no way this story arc will end or the head writer will be let go. Which is true. If it continues to be the best seller for Archie, there's no way the guy's going to leave. Now, or the story arc will end. Now, however, if profits drop, sales and profits drop, and seeing how Sega and Archie both get a piece of the pie, and if they don't get the pieces they expect, especially Sega, then that may be another way the head writer and the story arc come to an end. So in other words, ladies and gentlemen, if sales drop, not just through subscription, but through newsstands and all that, and you know, wherever you buy the comic, whether it's a comic shop, a Barnes and Noble, wherever, a supermarket maybe, a Walmart, who knows? You know, it will, if sales don't go up in those areas as well as in subscriptions, it's all going to come to an, that's one way it can all come to an end. And third but not least, and the third reason, which is last but not least, the only other way this could all end is if not the story arc, but if the head writer is let go or asked to move on to another comic book and never write for the Sonic comic book again due to the dissatisfaction of the fans. And that in those dissatisfaction of the fans. So in other words, the only other way this story arc the only way anything positive could come out of this for those that would be dissatisfied is if Ian Flynn was either let go from Archie or if he was asked to move on to other comic book workings and thus bring in somebody else. And those 3 ways are the only way things could change, story arcs could end, and head writers could be removed. Those would be the 3 ways. So basically what I'm saying here, folks, is basically the main things I'm pointing out here, folks, is 1, in my opinion, from what I have read from Chaos Control 14 summary, is it looks like we may be getting the game characters, getting more focus and more spotlight shown on the game characters leading into 250th issue. Now again, with the cover preview for, let's say, Sonic Universe 47, showing Bunny Rabbit or Bunny DeCoolit as one of the wanted by Eggman, then that maybe a SatAM character gets thrown into the mix. As well as we may have an Archie exclusive character, but we don't know who that could be. But again, folks, what I'm saying is that it, from what I can tell, and you agree, and you can agree with me, you could disagree with me, you could do a video response if you want,